What is going on, gunfighters, aspiring gunfighters, little ones that dream one day of being a gunfighter? Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, survival, the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. This week's going to be a little bit different. I did a series of short episodes. So if you're listening to this episode as a one-off, because this is the only thing you're interested in, that's fine. But realize it's part of a mini-series on lesser talked about, overlooked survival options. Talking about the quasi SBR 22. Talking about pistol conversion kits. The 22 Magnum. The 308 rifle paired with a 22 handgun. So just realize that. Being subscribed helps. That way you get these in order. And when they come out. If you're a regular listener, don't forget about Patreon if you want to become a patron. Also, if you don't want to sign up for a monthly subscription, I get that. There's some a la carte stuff on there. I get asked all the time about practical shooting drills. Well, I just did a video on there that's a bunch of clips of practical real-world handgun shooting drills. You know, that probably will pay for itself if you put those into practice and practice those instead of just going to the range and turning money into noise. You know, what's a box of ammo cost? Anyway, those are on sale. If you go to the shop on Patreon, you don't have to become a member. You can just buy it. And check out some other cool stuff that's in the shop as well. With that, I'm going to throw in a bio for this, and then I will plug in the mini-series episode. If you notice different audio quality, guys, I'm working 2 jobs. I'm doing the podcast and working as a private security contractor. So the audio quality, while not superb, hopefully is bearable. Just a little caveat there. Enjoy the episode. Blessed to have served in the military, law enforcement, combat veteran, private contractor, competition shooter, lifelong hunter, guide. Blessed by God that He got me through all those things so I could share this firsthand training, knowledge, experience with you to serve you today. Let's dive into the podcast. I thought it'd be a fun discussion today on maybe a curious idea I'm going to throw out there. And I'm not saying I'm going to switch to this or anything, but I'm going to make a case for this weapon or weapons type for a survival weapon. And kind of when you wouldn't think of it, wouldn't usually, I don't think, make people's top 5 list. It's like top 5 apocalypse guns or bug out guns or even hunting guns or anything like that. But I think there's a decent case that can be made for it. In fact, I saw one in a gun store, probably at least 8 months ago, maybe more. And I've thought about it a few times, as that's more than meets the eye. So let's talk about that. The weapon in question is going to be the braced pistol, AR style, but not in the caliber you might think, in 22 long rifle. I don't know if any other companies make this, and I'm not a shill for Smith & Wesson. They're a decent company, I think, but I'm not sponsored by them or anything. They don't give me any money. And Smith & Wesson for sure makes one right out of the box you wouldn't have to build, and it's a Smith & Wesson M&P 1522. It's their AR style 22. Takes the AR 22 style mags. Looks like an AR, except it's in 22. It's a straight blowback, so it doesn't operate. It's just a simple blowback like a 1022 or like many other 22s. So there's that, but it's got a lot of the accoutrement that you would expect on a regular AR-15. It's got like a rail on it where you can mount modern accessories, which we'll get to later. It's, got the similar kind of flash hider. And this one so you don't become a felon just for, picking it up, has got a pistol brace. So I guess the big one for this is size. The fact that it's not big. The fact that you could fit it in the back of a normal pack, like a normal day pack, would probably fit this pretty handily. And that's a big deal if you're looking for a bug out bag gun. And you don't want to go full bug out bag. You don't want to go full like Eberly stock gun runner, or you don't want to go, giant, large size Alice pack or Molly pack or something like that. You just want, I don't know what normal people use, a JanSport backpack, right? You're going for the gray man thing, right? Just not that you have to do that, or a laptop bag gun or something like that. It's pretty cool for that. It's pretty handy for that. The other big thing there is weight. It doesn't weigh a lot. It's pretty lightweight. And one of the big things that's touted with the 22 is the fact that the ammunition is light. That's one of the big things, right? I've used this analogy or close to it before. I'm not telling you this should be your apocalypse plan, but I can run out of the house without a shirt and a pair of old M81 Woodland BDU pants and carry 1,000 rounds of 22 ammo. I can throw them in the cargo pocket. I can run out with my 10/22 ready to go and 1,000 rounds of ammo just in my pockets. Probably have room left over for a protein bar, right? So I'm not saying that should be your apocalypse plan, but it does show the mobility and the lightweight of the ammo. There's nothing else, not even the 5.56, where you can do that. So that is a big selling point for the 22. Another big selling point is that, and I think this is overblown, but it is true that people do shoot deer and kill deer with a 22. 22 is a deadly round. A lot of people have met their demise at the hands of a 22 long rifle. It certainly can be a killing round for defense. It certainly can be a stopping round for defense, as many people are stopped by it. So, is it super effective? No. Am I telling you to get rid of your 9mm or your 5.56 or your 12 gauge for home defense and carry a 22? No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that you can't argue with the fact that it has put a lot of deer in the dirt, and it has put a lot of people back into the dust. From dust they were taken into dust they returned, and the 22 has been part of that saga for many people. So it is effective there, and it's super lightweight. Now, it doesn't have the knockdown power, so I'm not saying that it should be, but I'm saying that's why a lot of people choose it. And they'll make the case, you can kill an elephant with a 22. 22s are awesome. 22s tumble and slice and dice, and they're the Ginsu knife for anybody old enough to remember one of those early infomercials that slices it, dices it, does all the things, right? But the fact is that 22 long rifle is super lightweight, and it can be effective. And you're not giving up a ton of velocity here. You're giving up some, but it's still got a longer barrel than pretty much any conventional 22 handgun with this braced pistol. So you're gaining velocity if you look at it from a standpoint of versus a pistol. Now, if you're looking at it versus a full-length rifle, you're not. But you got somewhere in the middle for velocity, and you get the lightweight of the ammo. So you could, in a fairly lightweight bag, especially if you're talking about carrying other stuff, even in a moderately sized bag, right? You could carry the weapon, a couple thousand rounds of ammo, which might last you your entire life if you're judicious, right? You could fit it with iron sights, and the cool thing, getting back to the rail, you could put iron sights, because any, I think, fighting rifle should have iron sights, and any certainly survival gun should have iron sights, in my opinion. You could put iron sights on it. This kind of screams red dot. Now, I would have a QD mount for when your batteries stop working, because that's the thing about things with batteries. At some point, they're going to stop working. So you just take them off and throw them away, but they're a force multiplier while you got them. So throw something like a like a hollow sun or some kind of red dot on there. I said the hollow sun because it's got the option for the solar power backup, so you could throw that on there if you wish. So you got that going for you. You could put a white light on it, which is kind of handy. Again, it's got battery, so at some point it's not going to work, but for getting out of the city or whatever, while you have it, use it. So you can equip it like that. You can equip it with a decent sling, because again, it'll do most of the things that, it'll take most of the accessories that a modern AR will, which is quite a bit. And you get all the ammo. And here's one of the other things. You might be thinking, well, the Ruger 1022 takedown. And to be honest, the 1022 takedown is what I have behind the seat of my car right now. It's not the only gun I try to carry in the truck. I am recording in the truck. It's really early in the morning. And I have behind the seat the Ruger 1022 takedown. I also have an AR and a scout rifle and a shotgun, because I like options, right? But I do have a 1022 takedown. And again, I'm not saying this, I'm not even saying I'm switching to this. It's an interesting idea. I might get one day. It's not on the short list, but the 1022 takedown certainly has its good attributes. But here's the thing about the takedown. I have to assemble it. So it's really good for a gun that lives in a pack that I'm going to assemble. But if I'm going to pack it in general, I have to assemble it before I can shoot it. So if I'm walking along a trail or something, and a bunch of guys jump out to take everything that I own and leave me for dead, then I have to be like, wait, hold on, let me assemble this rifle and put it together before we are ready to party. This is probably not the best option. Now, you might say in that scenario that you would already have the rifle assembled, and I would agree, most of the time you would, unless you were going through some kind of urban environment where you thought having a long gun made you more of a target. That's a viable thing, right? The rule, kind of the point of survival is to survive, right? To keep on survivaling. So with something like this, you could have the sling attached, and the sling, you could have the gun in the bag and the sling over your shoulder, and you could just reach over your shoulder and grab it. It would even look like part of the pack strap, and then pull the gun out, which I would say, depending on the scenario, you're probably better off going to a handgun that you have concealed, but it is an option, and it is one of the advantages. Also, going back to the laptop bag thing, if you're talking about a day-to-day, I've mentioned this before, but pretty much any AR-15 is a takedown gun by virtue of those two pins. You may not think of it that way, but it is, right? You take those pins out and that gun becomes considerably smaller. This even more so, because both halves are smaller than a conventional AR. Obviously, the upper, because it's got a very short barrel, is smaller, and the lower, because it's got the shorter pistol brace. So both of those are smaller. So you can disassemble this if you wanted to, and it's even smaller than it is initially. So it's even more compact, depending on how you're going to store it, than the Ruger 1022 takedown. The Ruger 1022 takedown is still fairly long if you take it down. This is even smaller. So for a laptop bag gun, for something like that, so you run into the same problem. If it's disassembled, you have to reassemble it to use it. But if you're talking about that's all you can have on you for whatever the scenario is, right, on a city bus, if you take some kind of mass transit to work, I don't know if people still carpool. I don't live in a city, but Uber, something like that, right? Where maybe you're taking your laptop bag to work with your actual laptop in it, but you can also throw this in there. And you might have to use your Lamborghinis to get from the city to where you live. It's not the worst option ever. Again, it's lightweight ammo. And you should be training with your guns. And here's one of the cool things. This is one of the main reasons that I would like to get one, because it probably wouldn't be my end of the world as we know what option. I mean, if I had it, that'd be much better than nothing. But it'd be super fun to train with, let's be real, right? It would just be super fun. And I have an actual AR, which we'll get to maybe why this could be better in certain scenarios than your regular AR. But I have a regular, I guess a regular AR would be like a plain vanilla 16-inch. But I have a braced pistol AR in 5.56. But this would be really fun to train with as a trainer companion to that, because it's 22, so it's much cheaper to train with. So super fun to train with. This type of setup with a red dot will be super fun to train with, and the more you train with it, the better you're going to be with it. Also, getting into, well, why wouldn't one just do the same thing with a 5.56? Well, a braced pistol 5.56 is crazy loud, even by gun standards, right? Not all guns are created equal. Guns are loud in general, but some guns are much louder than others. A braced 5.56 with all that powder and a little teeny lightweight bullet, they're just kind of screamers, especially when you cut the barrel down. So they're loud even compared to a 16 or 20 inch AR, let alone a 22. So they're very, very loud. And when you go, halfway neutering that barrel on a 5.56, you do give up a substantial amount of velocity. So it's not the 5.56. You have a lot more unburnt powder in that than you're going to have in a 22. That just is what it is. Now you might be saying, well, that's why they made 300 blackout. And yes, if you're looking at just, if I'm being real with you, just ballistically, a similar type braced pistol in 300 blackout ballistically would be a better option, round per round. Here's the thing, the rounds are heavier. You're talking about a 30 cal projectile, powder weighs very little, and the case doesn't weigh nearly as much as the projectile, because the projectiles are generally the things that weigh the most. So if you're talking about a 30 caliber, 150 grain, up to 220 grain, you're probably looking at a similar weight to a 308. And at that point, unless it's just for the size, why wouldn't you just go 308? Also, I know you can get some affordable 300 blackout, but it's nowhere near as affordable as many other rounds, and nowhere near as available as many other rounds like 308 or 5.56, and it's certainly not as available or affordable as 22. So again, I'm not saying that this is a better option. I'm just saying this is the case that can be made for the 22. The ammunition is lighter, it's cheaper, it's more available, it's easier to carry more of it. So there is a case to be made for that. Also, the case to be made if you're trying to feed yourself, this is not a refined, bolt action, fine walnut grade hunting rifle. But certainly if you know what you're doing, it would be fine for small game and much easier to shoot for most people than a handgun, a traditional handgun, right? If you were talking about small game, rabbits, squirrel, grouse, things like that, it's a 22, right? So it excels at small game taking. It's one of the things that the 22 is great at, and one of the reasons it's stuck around. It hasn't stuck around for well over 100 years because it's a lot of people's survival pick, right? It's, as much as you might think preppers are mainstream, they're a very niche part of the community. It's stuck around because it's great for practice and it's great for small game. And this is that, right? It would be great for small game. Choose your whatever you want, hollow points or solids, depending on what ballistic characteristics you want. But it'd be great for that. It'd be great small game getter. In my opinion, not as good as a shotgun. But again, we're kind of throwing this out there as an option. It's a decent small game. If you're thinking about, like a suburban type rifle, things like pigeons, and you might turn your nose up at pigeon, but I would say you've probably never eaten too many pigeon. Pigeon were brought here as a food animal. They're not native, at least not the pigeons that I'm talking about, like a rock dove. They were brought here as a foodstuff, and they're good. So don't turn your nose up at a pigeon. They might eat healthier than some people do. Don't eat people, eat pigeons. Maybe make that a survival sticker. Anyway, so there's a case we made for small game. So just again and recap, the braced pistol 22, it's small, it's light, it's handy, it can take down and become even smaller and lighter. You can attach many of the modern accessories like a red dot, iron sights, sling, white light. Those things, the ammunition is readily available, affordable, easy to practice with, fun to shoot, and you could put it in a very vanilla type bag and nobody would be the wiser. So just some thoughts on that, guys. With that, your tactical tip of the day. I did a whole write-up on the Patreon page on different 22 loads and my experience with them over the decades. Some of them stretching back literal decades. Others have come along more recently, but have a lot of experience with them. So some experience with different loads, but just a brief, and there's a lot of loads on there. So if you want to go to Patreon and check that out, you can. There's a search function on there. But just if you don't know where to start, probably start with CCI mini mags. Either the 40 grain solids or the slightly lighter hollow points. They are kind of the standard for the ammo. If you think about it in 5.56 terms, they are like the XM 193 or similar vanilla load. Like if you don't know where to start there. You may decide you want something else, but that's a good place to start. The Aguila Super Extra would be probably my second pick for somewhere to start. Those are also very good, and they come in a couple of different variations, but the Aguila Super Extra. So that's your tactical tip of the day if you're looking at where to start for ammo with the 22 for this gun or another gun. Your tactical verse of the day. We must through many tribulations enter the kingdom of God. I repeat, we must through many tribulations enter the kingdom of God. With that, gunfighters, have a blessed day.